Coming up on Made in Virginia, making English horse saddles. And then we'll head over to the Shenandoah Valley to the only Main Street blacksmith shop left in the United States to shoe. And finally, we'll head out on the road with a mobile farrier. Production funding for Made in Virginia is made possible in part by the Virginia Foundation for Public Media, supporting public media initiatives throughout Virginia, and by at Atlantic Union Bank, we believe that Made in Virginia means something special, something unique. After all, Virginia is where tradition meets technology, where hard work combines with innovation, where artisans, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and corporations take business to the next level. We're there every step of the way as champions of Virginia businesses and as a proud supporter of Made in Virginia and Virginia Public Broadcasting. On a farm just outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, Tad Coffin Performance Saddles makes handmade English saddles like no one else in the world. Tad Coffin is a lifelong equestrian, winning 2 gold medals at the 1976 Summer Olympics. He took that riding experience and put it into his saddle company. He mixes craftsmanship and decades of innovation and technology to create each top-of-the-line saddle. Tad has come to believe that, of all the tools available to riders, the saddle has the most untapped potential to positively impact horse and rider performance.
I am a lifelong equestrian. I started riding at the age of 10 and have been hard at it ever since. And I have been to the Olympic Games in 1976. I won an individual and team gold medal, and also competed in the 1975 Pan American Games, in which I also won a team and individual gold medal. Also, about at that same time, 1976, I started getting involved with saddles and saddle design, and have been involved with saddles ever since. So I have a long history with horses and saddles. We have really 2 components to our work. One is a innovation laboratory, in which we're trying to constantly answer the question, what constitutes the very best possible saddle from the horse performance and rider performance standpoint. And then the second component is a boutique manufacturing operation where we make top-of-the-line English jumping saddles, also dressage saddles, and some saddles for the racing industry as well. As a rider, one of the most important tasks we have, and it's at the heart of good performance, is to elicit the horse's ability to use his back. Just like a human athlete, if a horse's back is compromised, their performance is compromised. And when it's in pain, just like humans, when their back is in pain, they're not happy. They're not happy doing anything that we ask them to do. And this idea of back pain caused by saddles is centuries old. And so it was clear to me as a rider, and through my involvement earlier with saddles, that this was a problem that needed to be solved. So we set about solving it.
Horse saddle technology has not changed in centuries. A quest for improved saddle performance led to an extraordinary period of research and development for Tad at his farm near Charlottesville, Virginia in the early 90s. The result was a new saddle and very innovative manufacturing process.
So the materials that we use are an acrylic alloy with carbon fiber used to reinforce and tune the saddle. So those are our essential components. We thermoform this acrylic alloy here on our own tools, and then we also do our own carbon fiber layups with it. And those materials are not used in anybody else's saddle trees.
It all starts with the tree, which is the base over every saddle. Their quest is to create a saddle that every horse will find comfortable and encourage top performance. All Tad Coffin performance saddles are made to order. Each saddle is comprised of 3 major parts: the tree, seat and flaps, and panels. They are handmade in tandem and come together to assemble the saddle.
The basic manufacturing has two different elements. One is the leather work, which we get leather imported from France because the French make extraordinary leather for saddle. And that leather comes in various types and forms, and it needs to be inspected, it needs to be cut, it needs to be stitched and put in all of its different components, so that, because that's the covering of the saddle. So that moves through one part of the shop. Through another part of the shop, you have the structural components of the saddle, the tree, which is the main chassis, and then all of the materials that get added onto the tree, and then the support cushions on the underneath side.
First, they make the tree, which is like the chassis of the saddle. They start by heating a flat piece of acrylic alloy, which is heated at 360 degrees for 20 minutes, and then put in a forming mold. From there, it is trimmed in a CNC machine and hand sanded.
I take that rough piece and I mount that in a CNC router, which is one of the machines that we use post thermoforming, and that's the machine that the CAD and CAM software tells what to do. So that CNC then cuts the edges off, cuts holes in it, drills holes, does whatever we need it to do at that point. And it's not just a random thing. It's cutting at very specific lines, very specific depths, and these particular CNC routers that we use are 3-axis machines. And what that means is it has, if you think back to your high school days of the Cartesian geometry plane, you have X, Y, and Z. So you have an X, Y axis and you have a Z axis, which is a vertical axis. And all 3 of those motors that control those axes are accurate down to 1/1000th of an inch. So that's the kind of movement that we're looking at.
Carbon fiber is laminated to the tree. Then they add stirrup bars and webbing. Finally, seat foam is cut and added to the tree. The second part of the saddle process is the seat and flaps. Tad Coffin uses only French leather, which is rich, dense, and wears very well over time.
We believe that the leather part, which is the traditional part, is really best. It's the best material for saddles to be made on, which is why we continue to use it. That part doesn't really require innovation, in our opinion. So leather comes in from France. The French make extraordinary saddle leather. And it has to be inspected, and then it has to be cut, and then all of the edges have to be treated so that they're rounded over and burnished and dyed, and then different leather component pieces get stitched together. Most of that stitching is done on a machine. Some of it's done by hand.
The leather is inspected, and then it is stamped, and the patterns are cut out. The saddle seat and saddle flaps are now assembled. All the leather in Tad Coffin saddles is stitched or sewn by hand. Then the foam is cut for the panels and they are assembled. The leather is then stretched and sewn around the panels. Now, all the 3 major parts are ready to come together for saddle assembly. The leather seat is pulled onto the tree. Flaps are put onto the tree and seat. The panels are then added to the tree, seat, and flaps. They finish up all the sewing, add the Tad Coffin logo pin, and complete a final inspection of the finished saddle. The saddle is then oiled and broken in for 24 hours. Finally, the saddle is shipped out to the customer. Every Tad Coffin performance saddle is ready to use right out of the box. All Tad Coffin saddles are upgradable, so all their customers can have the latest tree technology. There are close to 10 million horses in the United States, and 215,000 of these are in Virginia.
Virginia's horse country. You know, some of the best horsemen that this country has ever known are from Virginia. I moved down here from New York in 1984 and moved to this property in 1992. This particular area that we're in, the Charlottesville area, home to Thomas Jefferson and all of his innovation, is a very exciting place to be from the standpoint of innovation. There's a history of innovation here.
Tad Coffin Performance Saddles continues to innovate, and with each new discovery, they evolve horse saddles to the next level.
So one of the things that we're hoping to do is to change the perception of how saddles need to be engineered, how they need to be designed, how they need to be thought of, and how much difference that can actually make to horse performance going forward. We are at the tip of the spear in trying to change the narrative about saddles, and we hope that through our work this will catch on and sort of blossom throughout the whole of the industry. That would be total success in our way of thinking.
Established in 1998, the Blacksmith shop in Dayton, Virginia, owned and operated by David Brown, an AFA-certified farrier, is the last of its kind located on a main street in America. They are a full-service farrier supply store that offers ride-up or drop-off farrier service and custom blacksmithing. The location was chosen due to the large population of Old Order Mennonites in the area that need farrier services.
At the turn of the century, when horses were, the highest census number, everywhere, in towns, on the farms, everywhere, blacksmith shops were everywhere. They were in town, like I am now, but they were everywhere. Then the automobile came along, and trucks, and the blacksmiths became mobile, like a lot of other trades. Instead of people coming to them, they went to the people. And so a lot of the blacksmith shops went by the wayside.
And here we specialize in shoeing horses. We shoe a lot of horses for the Mennonite community, which they drive right up to the door here, and we unhook them and bring them in here and shoe them. We also do custom blacksmithing, and that is one area that I'm really trying to expand. We just moved to this location in March, and I wanted to get away from so much horseshoeing, not so much horseshoeing, and more blacksmithing where I can stand up straight.
Making a horseshoe starts by measuring the horse's foot. A piece of metal is cut and a mark is placed mid-point on the center of the rod. The steel is heated for the first time. It is taken out of the forge and the heel is built. The metal goes back in the fire, and then a second heel is created. The steel is heated and reheated many times throughout the horseshoe process. Next, they establish branches and shape the horseshoe to mimic the foot of the horse. Finally, they lay it out and punch in the nail holes. Now, the horseshoe is ready for the horse. Putting new shoes on a horse takes about 1 hour, and shoes need to be done every 6 to 8 weeks. Horseshoes offer protection for horses and also offer gait enhancement.
Horses are out riding on a rocky trail with a 150-pound person on their back. And their feet are going to wear down. And not to mention the road out here, of course, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's just they're not going to last. Their feet are going to be down too short, they get sore, so you put shoes on for protection. Another reason is for gait enhancement. Horses that have to go do a certain gait, dressage horses, they might wear a certain type of shoe. Jumping horses will wear a lighter shoe. Race horses wear a different type of shoe, a light shoe also. And I mean, there's as many shoes out there, or there are horses, as there is horses. And But the main two reasons are protection and gait enhancement.
Modern-day farriers mostly use machine-manufactured horseshoes. With that said, every horse is different, and all 4 feet of every horse are different. So there is still a lot of custom shaping needed for every horse. They start by examining the horse, the way it holds its body, its walk, and balance. From there, the farrier knows the adjustments needed for the next round of horseshoes.
Very rarely can you take a shoe out of a box and put it on a foot and it matches perfectly. Especially with these buggy horses working on a hard surface, there's a lot of stresses that cause the hoof to not grow equally, and one side might be straighter than the other side of the foot, so you have to shape the shoe accordingly.
The shoes are removed. The feet are cleaned and trimmed. The new shoe is shaped and attached, usually by nails.
The shoes are made so the toenail hole is pitched in further, because a horse's foot is more angular in the front, and as it goes back it straightens up. So in order for that nail to travel right through the foot and come out in the right place, it has to be pitched in a little bit. And you want the nail to go in along the white line of the foot and come out of the wall so you have enough to clinch over, and that's what holds the shoe on.
Boreum is a product that consists of tungsten carbide granules embedded in a bronze matrix. It is also known as drill tech. Boreum is used in farriery to improve traction and prevents wear for horses.
On these driving horses, being that they're on pavement, they require a non-slip surface on the shoe, or else it's like they're on ice skates. So we apply Boreum to the shoe. Actually, it's drill tech. Most people refer to it as Boreum. And as on the retail end, we actually sell a lot of those shoes across the country, and we've sent some to internationally for use in other countries in long rides. A lot of long riders favor those shoes over just a standard slick shoe.
Boreum is simply a hard surfacing material. It comes in a rod. It's tungsten carbide chips that are encased in a bronze matrix. There are some other matrices, but basically a bronze matrix, and we braze it onto the horseshoe. So that tungsten steel, which is a very, very hard metal, sharp edges, it gives that horse traction on concrete, asphalt, other hard surfaces, and it also prevents wear.
It all starts with a machine-manufactured shoe. The surface is prepared by cleaning and grinding down the metal to create a smooth surface.
Brazing is basically kind of gluing. So just like any gluing that you do, surfaces have to be prepared, clean and dry. So the first thing we do to that horseshoe is grind it, because coming from the manufacturer there may be an oil residue, slag, so we have to grind that surface totally clean.
The horseshoe is then heated up to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. They prep the area for boreum by applying a bit of nickel and silver. Then they braze on the boreum in an even amount across the shoe and work it until it is smooth.
Brazing, you are gluing, per se, instead of welding, where you're actually bringing the surface of two pieces of metal together so hot that they just become a molten state and bond together, just flow together. Brazing, you're taking basically a non-ferrous metal and adhering it or gluing it to that steel horseshoe. But done properly, it stays.
Finally, the horseshoes air-cool and they are ready to go. The Blacksmith shop sells their boreum shoes across the country and around the world.
We ship them all over the country, really, only because it's a procedure that, unless you sit down and do it a lot, you just don't become good enough at it. And we do a lot. France, Canada, South Korea, Ireland, I think, was one. But mainly all through the country. We've sent them to Alaska, Washington State, Maine, all four corners of this country.
Most farriers in Virginia and around the United States work from mobile trucks and converted trailer workshops like Mike Morris. There are around 500 farriers in the United States, serving around 215,000 horses.
I had two uncles that were professionals, and both my grandfathers shod at home. My one grandfather I never knew, but my one grandfather on my dad's side, I did. I watched him from the time I was a little boy. I had an uncle that did race horses and hunters and jumpers. My other one did, my other uncle, he did gaited horses. So I learned from both. I was around the one more that did the hunters and jumpers. From the time I was a very little boy, I knew this is what I wanted to do with my life. Oh, I've got, besides the shoes and itself, you know, and the nails that we use, every farrier use on a daily basis, I've got a complete shop within my trailer. I've got grinders and drill presses and pad cutters and be able to thread and tap shoes for screw-in caulks. Having a drill press, I can do drive-in studs. I also carry oxygen acetylene. I can do Boreum work. On this particular horse we did the glue on, he has real thin soles. He has very thin walls. And basically when he came here, he was hard to keep weight on. So his feet hurt. And he was kind of a cranky horse. The glue ons is basically taking him out of pain. So now he's able to gain weight. He's friendly. You know, his hoof wall would not hold shoes. This year would have been terrible as wet as we've been. He would never held shoes. And when you pull the clinch over, basically everything around that hoof wall just deteriorates and the shoes basically will fall off. I mean, if he could suck them off in the mud as bad as it was this year and never keep them on. Also, in that situation, speaking about lost shoes, I'll use glue-ons in that situation where a horse has had shoes on and he comes in, he catches a foot, it's, you know, from either stepping from behind, stomping flies and driving them off. But instead of the shoe getting caught and the clinches breaking loose from the foot, it rips all that away from the nail holes down.
The first step is to remove the old shoe. These are a lot harder to remove than a traditional horseshoe. The foot is cleaned and trimmed.
Then you've got to clean and prep the foot because you are putting the glue back on. It's an adhesive, two-part adhesive. So you have to have that foot clean. And when we get to where we put in the glue and stuff, to applying the glue, we have to use rubber gloves because we don't even want the oils off our hands to be on that hoof horn. So we clean that foot, prep and prepare, trim it, get everything like we would, just like we were going to nail on a shoe. We, you know, if we have to lower the heel or take off toe or, you know, lower the outside, lower the inside, we'll make all these preparations.
The legs are wrapped with vet wrap and held in place with electrical tape. This is to keep the glue off the horse's legs. The farrier will use gloves in this process to avoid any oils from their hands affecting the glue. The adhesive is mixed. It is applied to the shoe and the horse's hoof.
So we mix up our adhesive. Usually I count to 45 seconds. Weather does affect it, like it's very cold here today. So you got a little more time. Where in the summertime, if we've even above 70 on up, and when you get 80, 90 degrees, you got to be very fast to be able to get that shoe on. You don't have any time to waste.
The shoe is lined up and then placed on the hoof. The excess glue is worked out. Plastic wrap is wrapped tightly around the hoof and shoe. The glue takes between 7 and 9 minutes to set. Once the glue is dry, the plastic wrap is removed and the horse is ready to go.
It's a great product for these horses, and the main thing that we do as farriers, besides making a living at it, is to try to help the animals. It's so important.
Farriers are important to the health and well-being of every horse. They will continue to manufacture and develop better shoes, but the process has largely stayed the same throughout history.
The population of horses in Virginia is about 215,000. It's hard to say exact numbers, but approximately it's probably 500 farriers, which is a lot of jobs in one sense when you think about it. The income and impact that it makes on the economy in Virginia is $1.2 billion annually. There's different breeds of horses, you know, all through the state. Quarter horses probably being ranked number one. probably the most horses that we shoe, and this is why the numbers for farriers is hard, because they're pleasure horses. And I do mostly all show horses. Not that I don't do pleasure horses. I do a lot of fox hunting horses, hunters, jumpers, ponies, but it's a great life and it's a great job.
The United States has just under 10 million horses, the largest population in the world, even more now than when horses were used as the primary mode of transportation. Where there is a horse, a saddle and farrier are not far behind. Virginia continues to foster a thriving horse culture and continues to be a leader in the equestrian industry. Production funding for Made in Virginia is made possible in part by the Virginia Foundation for Public Media, supporting public media initiatives throughout Virginia, and by at Atlantic Union Bank, we believe that Made in Virginia means something special, something unique. After all, Virginia is where tradition meets technology, where hard work combines with innovation, where artisans, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and corporations take business to the next level. We're there every step of the way as champions of Virginia businesses and as a proud supporter of Made in Virginia and Virginia Public Broadcasting.